Bienvenidos, welcome to Spain on a Fork. As always, it is so great to have you here. I hope you're staying safe and healthy out there and feeling fabulous at the same time. Anyways, today we have such a great recipe. We're making a Spanish onion soup. In my opinion, this is the most flavorsome onion soup out there. It's got a ton of flavors and it's very easy to make, folks. This is the perfect soup for any time of the year, as you can serve it either piping hot or even at room temperature. Either way, it's always gonna fill your body with so much goodness. Let's begin by cutting 3 medium-sized onions, or you can use 2 large ones, each one in half. Now when you're cutting onions, you wanna make sure you cut them in half lengthwise through the root. That way when you're chopping your onions, you don't get all teary-eyed. Then I'm gonna remove between 1 to 2 of the outer layers. I always like to do this when I'm working with onions, as those outer layers are not as firm as the inside ones. That way when you cook the onions, it gives them a better texture, and it also makes it so much easier to cut. And as I'm doing this, I like to have a paper towel underneath for an easy cleanup. And we'll thinly slice the onions. Then I'm going to grab a stock pot, heat it with a medium heat, and add in 2 tablespoons, which is 30 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil. Now the olive oil I'm using to make this soup is from Apollo. This is their Miller's favorite organic extra virgin olive oil. It has such a beautiful depth of flavors and it works perfect with this soup. You'll find a link where you can get it in the description box below. After heating the olive oil for 2 minutes on a medium heat, I'm going to add in the sliced onions and start mixing them around with that olive oil. The secret here, make sure each slice of onion is coated in that olive oil. And you don't have to mix this continuously, just get in there every couple minutes, that way the onions don't burn and they all evenly saute. While the onions are cooking, I'm gonna grab 5 cloves of garlic, remove the skins from the garlic, thinly slice them, and add them into the stock pot with the onions. And we'll give this a mix, that way those garlic are incorporated into the onion. And once again, you don't have to mix this continuously, just get in there every couple minutes, that way the garlic and onion don't burn and they all evenly saute. About 15 minutes after adding the onions into the pan and they're developing a golden sauteed color, I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of white sugar, which equals 2 grams. The point of the sugar here, it's going to help caramelize those onions. And we'll give this a quick mix, that way that sugar is evenly coating all the onions. About 5 minutes after adding the sugar into the pan and a total cooking time of 20 minutes, you can see that the onions are beautifully caramelized. For the next step, I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of sweet smoked Spanish paprika. This is 2.30 grams. Half a teaspoon of dried thyme, which is 0.45 grams. And season everything with sea salt and freshly cracked black pepper. And we'll give this a quick mix, that way all these seasonings are evenly coating the onions and the garlic. Then we'll add in half a cup of white wine, which is about 118 milliliters. And we'll simmer this between 2 to 3 minutes. This is enough time for the alcohol to cook off in the white wine and for the flavor of that white wine to really incorporate into the onion and garlic. About 3 minutes after adding the white wine into the pan, you can see it's really thickened up and all that alcohol has cooked off. I'm going to add in 4 cups of vegetable broth. This equals 950 milliliters. Now the broth I'm using is homemade. You'll find a link on how to make it in the iCard above. We'll also add in 1 bay leaf. And we're going to simmer this for about 15 minutes. This is enough time for all these flavors to come together. In the meantime, I'm going to grab 1 baguette and cut it into slices that are ½ inch thick, which is about 1.25 centimeters. Then we'll cut each piece of baguette in half and into 4 evenly sized pieces to end up with some squares of bread. We'll add in our pieces of bread into a baking tray that's lined with foil paper and make sure they're all in a single layer. And we'll add our baking tray into a preheated oven, bake and broil option, that's the bottom and top heat, 250 degrees Celsius, which is about 470 degrees Fahrenheit. Now if your oven can't do both functions at the same time, no big deal. Just bake your pieces of bread for an extra couple minutes. Basically, we're just lightly toasting these, which at the end we're gonna add into the soup, which gives it an incredible texture. About 5 to 7 minutes after adding the pieces of bread into the oven, they should be perfectly toasted. You don't want to over toast them. I'm gonna take them out of the oven and set them aside. Okay, let's move back to our soup. It's been simmering for 15 minutes with the lid on, and at this point, all these flavors should be perfectly combined together. For the final step of the recipe, let's poach some eggs inside of the soup. Now before I add the eggs into the pan, I always like to crack them into individual bowls. This is just to ensure that none of the shells go in there and that the egg yolks are not broken. We'll gently add the eggs into the soup and place the lid back on the stock pot. And we're gonna simmer this for another 2 to 3 minutes. This is enough time for those eggs to be perfectly poached with the egg whites nice and firm and those egg yolks to still have a beautiful creamy texture. After about 2.5 minutes, those eggs should be perfectly poached in this soup, ready to go. I'm gonna remove it from the heat, transfer some of the soup into a shallow bowl. We'll add in some of the toasted pieces of bread over the soup. Top it off with one of the poached eggs. And sprinkle it with some freshly chopped parsley. Check it out, our Spanish onion soup is done. Look at this incredible presentation, so easy to put together, incredible aromas. Let's give it a try and see how it tastes. Now this is what I call one heck of a good looking onion soup. Here we go. It's absolutely delicious. You got those caramelized onions mixed in with that sweet smoked Spanish paprika and that thyme. And then the poached egg and the toasted bread. This gives a new dimension of flavors, folks. You saw this, a Spanish onion soup. Very easy to make, made with very simple ingredients. Make it at home, guaranteed to be one of the best onion soups you will ever taste. Really quick before I go, a shout out to a couple of my patrons, Kim Hems and Billy Tester. Again, guys, thank you so much for being patrons of Spain on a Fork. You know how much I appreciate you. For the rest of you, if you're not with me on Patreon, consider becoming one. It helps with ingredients and equipment to continue making videos like this. You'll find my Patreon link in the description box below and iCard above. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, leave me a comment below, and if you're not subscribed, you know what to do, smash that subscribe button. Till the next time, hasta luego.